What if the most powerful thing you could do is nothing? What if the moment you stop explaining yourself, stop defending yourself, stop trying to be understood, is the exact moment people finally show you who they really are? Think about that. Because most people talk too much, not because they want to, but because they are afraid of silence. Silence feels uncomfortable. Silence feels awkward. Silence feels like losing. So people rush to fill it. They explain, they justify, they argue, they prove. But something strange happens when you stop doing that. When you suddenly choose silence instead of reaction, people start revealing themselves. And most of the time, what they reveal will shock you. There was a man once who learned this lesson the hard way. For years, he tried to be understood by everyone. At work, he explained every decision. In friendships, he explained every misunderstanding. In family conversations, he explained every emotion. Every time someone questioned him, he defended himself. Every time someone judged him, he corrected them. Every time someone misunderstood him, he tried harder. He believed something most people believe. If I just explain myself clearly enough, people will understand me. But the truth is darker than that. Sometimes people understand you perfectly. They just don't care. And one day he noticed something strange. The more he explained himself, the more people questioned him. The more he defended himself, the more people attacked him. The more he tried to fix misunderstandings, the more misunderstandings appeared. It felt like being trapped in a conversation that never ended. Like trying to prove your innocence in a courtroom where the judge had already decided your guilt. Have you ever felt that? Like no matter how clearly you speak, no matter how calmly you explain, someone still chooses to twist your words. Someone still chooses to doubt you. Someone still chooses to misunderstand you. And one day, something inside him broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. He simply got tired. Tired of explaining. Tired of convincing. Tired of proving. So the next time someone questioned him, he didn't explain. He just looked at them. Calm. Silent. And that silence changed everything. At first, the other person kept talking. They repeated their accusations. They repeated their assumptions. They expected a reaction. Because reactions are predictable. Arguments follow a pattern. You speak, they speak. You defend, they attack. Back and forth, back and forth. But silence breaks the pattern. Silence creates space. And inside that space, people expose themselves. Because when you don't react, people reveal their true intentions. Some people will keep attacking, not because they want truth, but because they want control. And when they realize you won't argue, they become louder, more aggressive, more emotional. Why? Because your silence removes their power. Other people react differently. When you stay silent, they start explaining themselves. They start revealing things they never planned to say. They fill the silence with their real thoughts, their real feelings, their real motives. And suddenly, you begin to see things clearly. Who respects you, who manipulates you, who misunderstands you, and who never tried to understand you in the first place. Silence is like turning on a light in a dark room. At first, your eyes struggle to adjust, but then you see everything. And the most surprising part, the moment you stop talking, people start talking more. Have you noticed that? When you argue, conversations stay on the surface. But when you stay quiet, people dig deeper. They reveal frustration, jealousy, insecurity, sometimes even guilt. And slowly, the man started noticing patterns. The people who truly cared about him did something different. When he stayed silent, they became curious. They asked questions. They tried to understand. But the people who only wanted control became uncomfortable. Because silence cannot be manipulated. Silence cannot be twisted. Silence cannot be misquoted. Silence simply observes, and observation is powerful. Think about the strongest people you've ever met. They don't rush to explain themselves. They don't argue every criticism. They don't react to every opinion. They listen, they watch, they learn. Because they understand something most people don't. Words can hide truth, but silence reveals it. Imagine walking into a room where everyone is talking about you. Some are praising you, some are criticizing you, some are guessing your intentions. Now imagine you say nothing. You simply sit there, listening. What happens? People begin to reveal their real opinions. The masks start slipping, and suddenly you learn more about them in 10 minutes of silence than you would in 10 years of conversation. That was the moment the man realized something powerful. Talking gives people information about you, but silence gives you information about them. And information is power. But silence is not easy, because silence feels like surrender. Your mind will scream at you to respond, to correct, to defend, to prove. But the strongest response is often no response at all. Because when you stop reacting, you start observing. And when you start observing, you start understanding. And when you start understanding, you realize something shocking. Many people were never confused about you. They were simply waiting for your reaction, waiting for your anger, waiting for your defense, waiting for the drama. Because drama is entertaining. Drama gives people something to feed on. But silence starves that hunger. And the moment people realize they cannot control your reactions, they reveal their true character. But here's the question most people are afraid to ask themselves. If you stopped explaining yourself today, if you stopped defending every misunderstanding, if you stopped reacting to every opinion, who in your life would stay, and who would slowly reveal that they were never on your side? Because silence does something terrifying. It shows you the truth about people, and sometimes the truth is not what you hoped to be. But what happened next in this man's life changed the way he saw every relationship forever. Because the deeper he stepped into silence, the more the world around him started speaking. And what it revealed was something most people spend their entire lives ignoring. What happens when you stop reacting and the world realizes it can no longer control you? At first, nothing seems to change. The same people talk, the same conversations happen, the same opinions float around you. But something inside the room shifts, because silence is uncomfortable for people who are used to controlling the conversation. Think about the last time someone tried to provoke you. Maybe they questioned your decision. Maybe they criticized something you worked hard for. Maybe they said something unfair. What is the normal reaction? You defend yourself. You explain your side. You try to prove that they are wrong. But the moment you stop doing that, the game changes. And that is exactly what the man discovered. One day at work, a colleague began questioning his decisions in front of others. It wasn't the first time. Before, he would immediately explain everything, every reason, every detail, every justification. But that day, he didn't. He simply looked at the person, calm, still, silent. And the room became strange. The colleague kept talking, at first confidently, then louder, then faster, because silence creates pressure. It forces people to hear their own words, without interruption, without distraction. And something interesting happened. The longer the man stayed silent, the more the colleague began revealing things he never meant to show. His frustration, his insecurity, his need to be right. Suddenly it was obvious to everyone in the room. This wasn't about truth. This wasn't about improvement. This was about ego, about someone trying to feel powerful. And when the man finally spoke, he said only one sentence. "Are you finished?" The room went quiet. Not because the sentence was powerful, but because the silence before it had already exposed everything. That is the hidden power of silence. You don't need many words when the truth has already revealed itself. Most people talk themselves into revealing their real character. You just have to give them enough silence to do it. But here's where it becomes difficult. Silence does not only reveal others, it reveals you too. When you stop talking, you begin hearing something you were always avoiding: your own thoughts, your own doubts, your own fears. Because sometimes we talk not to explain ourselves to others, but to escape the noise inside our own minds. Silence removes that escape, and for the first few days, the man felt it. His mind kept asking questions. Why didn't you defend yourself? They will think you were weak. You should have said something. But he waited, and slowly something unexpected happened. People started changing their behavior around him. The ones who used to provoke him stopped trying so hard because they realized something frustrating. He no longer reacted. Imagine throwing stones into a lake. You expect ripples, you expect movement, but if the lake becomes perfectly still, your stones lose their power. That's what silence does. It turns chaos into still water, and still water reflects everything clearly. The man began noticing small details he had never seen before. The coworker who always smiled at him, but spoke differently when he wasn't around. The friend who only called when they needed something. The relative who criticized every decision, but never supported any effort. Before, he was too busy talking to notice, too busy explaining, too busy defending. But silence gave him something rare: perspective. And perspective changes everything. One evening, he sat alone and thought about his life. All the conversations, all the arguments, all the energy spent trying to be understood. And he realized something painful. Many of those conversations were never meant to understand him. They were meant to control him, control his reactions, control his emotions, control his choices. But the moment he stopped reacting, that control disappeared, and people don't like losing control. So they reveal themselves. Some will become angry, some will become distant, some will suddenly lose interest in you, not because you changed, but because your silence exposed their intentions. And here is the most powerful realization he had. The people who truly respect you do not need endless explanations. They listen. They observe, they trust your character. But the people who demand constant explanations often already decided their opinion about you. Your words were never going to change it. And once you see that, you stop wasting energy. Think about how much of your life is spent explaining yourself, explaining your choices, explaining your dreams, explaining your boundaries, explaining why you said no. But strong people understand something different. Not everyone deserves an explanation. Sometimes your silence is the explanation. And silence creates a strange mirror. People begin projecting their own thoughts onto you. Some assume confidence. Some assume arrogance. Some assume weakness. But what they assume says more about them than it ever says about you. Because when there are no words, people reveal their own minds. And the man slowly became comfortable with that. He didn't rush to correct every misunderstanding. He didn't chase every opinion. He didn't fight every rumor. Because he learned something simple but powerful. Time reveals truth better than arguments. Think about it. How many arguments in your life actually changed someone's mind? Very few. But time exposes everything. The liar eventually contradicts himself. The manipulator eventually overplays their hand. The fake supporter eventually disappears. You don't need to fight every battle. Sometimes you just need to stay silent long enough for people to reveal who they truly are. And that realization gave him peace. For the first time in years, he felt calm. Not because the world had changed, but because he stopped trying to control how the world saw him.
And strangely, the less he explained himself, the more people respected him, because confidence does not scream, confidence whispers. Confidence sits calmly in silence, and people feel it. But the most powerful lesson was still waiting for him, because one day, silence revealed something he was not prepared to see, something about the people closest to him, something about trust, something about loyalty, and that moment would change the way he saw relationships forever. Because when you truly stop talking, you don't just hear other people more clearly, you start seeing their real intentions. And sometimes that truth can change your entire life.
What if the biggest lesson silence teaches you is not about other people? What if the real revelation is about you? Because the man believed he had already discovered the truth. He thought silence had shown him who people really were. He thought he understood the patterns now, who respected him, who tried to control him, who only appeared when they needed something. But life always saves its hardest lessons for last. One evening, he was sitting with a group of people he had known for years, people he trusted, people he believed understood him. The conversation started casually, small jokes, small complaints, small opinions about life. Then slowly, the topic turned toward him. Not directly, not openly, but in subtle ways. A comment here, a joke there, a slight criticism disguised as humor. Before, he would have reacted instantly. He would laugh it off, or defend himself, or explain the misunderstanding. But this time, he stayed silent. And silence does something strange in moments like that. It stretches the moment. It makes every word heavier, every joke sharper, every opinion clearer. At first, they laughed. Then they continued talking. And because he did not interrupt, they kept revealing more. Little truths hidden inside casual sentences. One of them said something like, "You know him. He always acts calm, but he probably thinks he's better than everyone else." Another laughed. Another added a comment. And the man sat there quietly, listening, watching, not reacting. And suddenly he realized something painful. Some of these people had never really understood him. Some of them had quietly built stories about him in their minds, stories he never even knew existed. And in that moment, he felt something many people feel when they first discover the power of silence. Disappointment. Not anger, not hatred, just quiet disappointment. Because sometimes the people you defend the most are the same people who misunderstand you the most. But something inside him had changed now. Instead of reacting, instead of explaining himself, instead of correcting them, he simply listened. And the more he listened, the more he realized something important. People do not always reveal themselves through conflict. Sometimes they reveal themselves through comfort. When people think you are not reacting, they become relaxed. They become honest. They speak their real thoughts without filters. And that night, he learned a truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Not everyone in your life is meant to understand you. Some people only know the version of you they created in their own minds, and no explanation will ever change that. Because people don't always see you as you are. They see you through their own fears, their own insecurities, their own assumptions. And arguing with someone's imagination is impossible. So the man did something different. He didn't fight the misunderstanding. He didn't correct every assumption. He simply let time do what time always does: reveal character.